Welcome to part 4 of how to play the saxophone. This is the alto saxophone. We're talking about forming the embouchure and making an actual sound out of the instrument today. So what we're going to do is I have the whole saxophone here, and I'm just going to take off the neck with the mouthpiece on it, and we're going to start with just this part. So I'm going to put this part away. Okay, so we have our neck, and we're going to form the embouchure. Now, I've said that word a couple times. That's just a fancy word that means how you form your mouth when you play the saxophone. So what we do is you take your lip and you're gonna turn your lip slightly over your teeth, just a little bit. It doesn't have to be tiny. You don't have to stick your lip all the way in there, just a little bit. And what that's gonna do is cover those bottom teeth and provide a little cushion of your lip for your reed. So that goes over. Your reed goes on top of that lip. Okay, your top teeth go on top of the mouthpiece, just lightly. Okay, so the teeth go on the mouthpiece, and then the rest of your mouth that is gonna go around that mouthpiece like a rubber band. Okay, and your corners are gonna be tight. Chin is gonna be smooth. You can't see my chin because I got stuff in the way, but nice and smooth, pointed chin. Okay, and smooth. All right, that's how you're gonna form that embouchure. Okay, and the next thing we're talking about is, being that the saxophone is a wind instrument, it requires that you have some air to blow. So I want you to just take a nice deep breath and let it out. Now when you take a deep breath, that's how you should breathe every time you're about to play. Not just little shallow sips, right? You're going to take a deep breath every time you're going to play. Okay? Now, the next thing we're talking about is how to blow that air. Now, what I want you to do is just repeat after me. Just make this sound. Okay? It's kind of like a sprinkler a little bit. It's not ch-ch-ch, though. It's... All right? Hopefully you've done that a couple times. Now that you've done it and not thinking about how you're making that sound, think about how you made that sound. Right? What happened? Where did your tongue go? Okay, did you stop blowing air? Hopefully, if you did it right, you didn't stop blowing air. You're blowing air the whole time. You're just interrupting that air with your tongue. It's kind of like being in the middle of the summer, and they have that hose of water just turned on full blast, and the water just flowing out of that hose. Let's pretend this is the hose, and the water's coming out. And you take your hand, and you just go psh, 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 in between that water stream. Now, the water never turned off. Nobody turned the water off. But you just created some little pulses of water that went through. And it's the same thing with your air. Imagine your air is that water and your tongue is your hand. And you're blowing lots of air and you just go. Okay? And that's kind of how we blow in a saxophone when we play. We put it up. So what I want you to do is form that embouchure. And then I'm going to have you just blow air like that, making that sound. And make it as long as you can. So, real long. And just try and get air in between the reed and the mouthpiece, into the mouthpiece and through. Just try and blow air through it. Don't worry even if you're going to make a sound or not. Just blow air through it. Let's try it. Ready? So you form the embouchure correctly. Lip, chin smooth and pointed. Teeth on top, lips around. And then we're going to take a breath through the sides of our mouth, like this. Okay? You don't breathe through it, and we don't breathe, and then put it on, right? Get everything set first, and then breathe through the sides of your mouth, and then we're just going to blow air through it. Here we go. Cool. Now, if you made a sound, then practice right now taking a breath like that and blowing, making sure you're going at the beginning of it. Okay? And you'll notice if you do that, your tongue is going to touch the tip of the reed and the mouthpiece. Okay, your tongue's going to go right here. All right? Even when I put it in, my tongue just goes there. And then when I blow, my tongue is on that reed, and then I go. Okay, and that's how I make that first sound. And then any sound in between, do just like we did. And if you made that sound, go ahead and try and make that sound as long as you can, and try to make some of those individual sounds like I just did by just blowing steady air and using that tongue to interrupt. Okay? If you didn't make a sound, you blew and it didn't work. Maybe it did this. Maybe you're doing that it just feels restricted. So what you might need to do is relax your jaw a little bit. You might be pushing. If you push this reed, let me come real close here. If you take this reed right here and you push down super hard with your lip, it's going to close that off and no air can get in there. Okay, you want to make sure the air can get in there. So don't close it off too much. So try and relax a little bit and try that again. Now, maybe your problem is the opposite. Maybe you relax too much. You gotta have enough pressure on that reed, but not too much. Okay, a couple other things you might try. Maybe you have too much mouthpiece in your mouth. Maybe it's too far in there. Now, I'm not going to try and blow it because it'll probably make a really loud squeak, and that's not what we want either. Okay, so if it's squeaking real loud or it not playing, you might have too much mouthpiece in your mouth. So pull it out a little bit. Okay, the teeth kind of just go about somewhere around here. It's not too far on there. Okay, and then the other problem is you might have it too far out. Okay, so kind of experiment. Put it in farther, out farther. Loosen your lips, tighten your lips. See where you're going to get to where you can make this sound. Okay, and then the last thing that I find sometimes happens is maybe you have it angled up too high or angled down too low. Okay, so make sure it's just kind of coming straight out of your mouth. All right, and then practice just with the neck of the mouthpiece, making a steady tone. So you want your tone to just go really like long sound and steady. And you just keep it as long as you can go with this steady. Try to avoid this. Alright, making that pitch move around. Now, you can do that for fun, to play around. That's just fine. But at some point, really practice on keeping a steady tone. Okay? And that'll really help get us started for making that saxophone sound. So once you get that down, continue practicing that, making that sound. The better you can make a consistent sound with your neck and your mouthpiece, the better and easier it will be once you put it all together with your saxophone. So practice that a lot of times. Now, speaking of practice, just a few practice tips. Number one, make sure you have a place you can practice regularly without getting interrupted. And you might have to have a conversation with your family and with your parents about that. Where are you going to practice where you can do that regularly, consistently, without getting interrupted? It might be your bedroom, it might be the back porch, it might be the garage, it might be, I don't know, you might have a different place in your house that works. And just figure that out with your family. Now, if there's no possible way, which has happened to some of my students, that you have a place that you can practice, you do have an option often to practice in the band room after school. For 20, 30 minutes, and then you can put it away, and you never even have to take it home. If you did that every day after school, put it away, and then go home, then you're going to get enough practice in if you're doing that regularly. Okay? So that's an option too. So kind of check with your parents and family to figure out what's going to work. You need a place you can practice regularly. The next thing with practice is you want to practice things that you need to get better at. The temptation for a lot of kids is to play the things they already know how to play well. And that's fun, and there's a place for that. But if you want to get better as a musician, then you find the things in either our concert music or in the book that we're working on that you're not doing well, and you work on that until you can do it better. And there's ways you can do that, like slowing it down, counting out the rhythms, playing little sections at a time, like maybe one measure at a time or even a couple notes at a time, until you understand how those work together. And then putting things back together, speeding things back up. It's a long process, but if you'll work on it, you'll get better, and pretty soon you'll be playing really hard stuff and having fun doing it. Okay, so those are just a few tips for practice, and I'll give you lots more in class as we get going in band. So join me next time for part 5, and we'll cover some more things about how to play the saxophone. See you then.